Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I was always caught in a crossfire between my mom and her sister. My mom was as meek as they come. She joined the military when she was young, which apparently was some kind of unforgivable sin in my aunt's eyes. From then on, my aunt made it her life's mission to make my mom feel like dirt. Now my aunt? She was your typical holier-than-thou church lady, always going on about how righteous she was because she never missed a Sunday service. But let me tell you, behind closed doors, she was meaner than a junkyard dog. I was about 5 when I first noticed how nasty she was to my mom. Seeing my mom shrink around her, I naturally became scared of her too. Big mistake. My aunt took that as a personal offense and decided to get even with a 5-year-old. Yeah, you heard that right. She started small. While my siblings got fancy presents, I'd get something like a bar of soap, but it escalated quickly. Whenever we stayed at her house, she'd yell at me and put me down. I never told my parents, so she became our regular babysitter. Lucky me, right? As I got older and didn't need a babysitter anymore, she switched tactics. She started spreading lies about me to anyone who would listen. When I was 17, I found out she'd been telling all our neighbors I was a Satanist. Can you believe that? Then, when I got married, she pulled a complete 180, and suddenly I was her favorite nephew and we were best buddies. As if the last 20 years of abuse never happened. I saw right through it, but I decided to play along. Why? Well, she was single, childless, and loaded. Call me cynical, but I knew how to hold a grudge. So for the next 2 decades, I pretended I could stand being in the same room with her. I'd buy her whatever religious knickknacks were on clearance at the bookstore. She'd go on about how spiritual I was and shower us with expensive gifts and meals. But she never stopped being cruel to my mom. She even tried to turn me against her, making up wild stories about my mom trying to smother her mother or push her downstairs. Through it all, my mom never stood up for herself. It killed her that her sister hated her, but she never stopped trying to fix the relationship. Time went on and then my aunt got diagnosed with a terminal illness. In her final month, she decided to twist the knife one last time. She announced she was cutting all contact with my mom. My mom was heartbroken. After 60 years of abuse, she still loved her sister and wanted to care for her. I tried talking to my aunt about it, but she claimed her priest said my mom didn't deserve forgiveness. She even tried to use my supposed strong Catholic faith against me, saying I should respect that decision. My mom's only comfort was that I was there to care for her sister, so I played my part and visited her almost every day until the end. In her final days, she was so weak she could barely whisper, and that's when I saw my chance for a little payback. I called my mom and told her she was welcome to visit anytime. My mom was over the moon. She rushed over immediately and came back every day after that. She'd sit for hours holding her sister's hand and talking to her, so happy they were reunited. My aunt could only glare at me while I smiled back. My mom never knew her sister didn't want her there, and that secret's going to the grave with me. On the last day, it was clear the end was near. It was just me and my aunt in a room. I leaned in close and delivered my parting shot. I made sure to speak loud and clear. I want you to know, I hate you. The look in her eyes told me she understood. A minute later, she was gone. Part of me hopes my little revelation pushed her over the edge. But thanks to her generosity and her will, I'm set for life. I guess playing the long game paid off after all. You know, looking back, I can't help but laugh at the irony. My aunt spent her whole life trying to be this perfect, holy person. She went to church every week, preached about forgiveness and love, but couldn't even show an ounce of kindness to her own sister or nephew. And in the end, all her scheming and manipulation just made her miserable and alone. Meanwhile, my mom, who she treated like dirt for decades, got to spend those last precious days with her, finding some peace. And me? Well, I may have played dirty, but I'd like to think I gave both of them something they needed in the end. My mom got her closure, and And my aunt, well, she got a dose of reality. I know some might say I stooped to her level, that I should have been the bigger person, but you know what? After watching her torment my mom for most of my life, after enduring years of her abuse myself, it felt pretty darn good to finally turn the tables. Do I regret it? Not one bit. My mom got to believe her sister forgave her in the end, and that brought her more peace than anything else could have. As for my aunt's money, well, I like to think of it as hazard pay for all those years of putting up with her. In the end, I guess the moral of the story is, actually, you know what? There is no moral. Sometimes life is messy, people are complicated, and you've got to play the hand you're dealt. I played mine and I sleep just fine at night. So here I am living my best life courtesy of my dear departed aunt. I'd like to think she's looking down from wherever she is, fuming at the fact that her precious fortune is being enjoyed by her heathen of a nephew. And you know what? That thought brings a smile to my face every single day. I was always a quiet kid who preferred reading books to playing outside. My parents were both teachers, so our house was filled with books and educational games. They encouraged me to socialize more, but I was content in my own little world. That all changed when I turned 12. My parents sat me down one day and told me they were worried about my lack of friends. They gently suggested I try to spend more time outside with the other kids on our street. At first, I was reluctant, but I knew they had a point. So I started forcing myself to go outside and join in when the other kids were playing. It was awkward at first, I didn't know how to approach them or what to say, but slowly I started to enjoy the games and the company. There was one kid in particular who helped me come out of my shell. Let's call him T. He was always patient with me and made sure I was included in everything. As I spent more time outside, I started to notice a lady who lived in the big blue house at the end of our street. She always seemed to be scowling at us from behind her curtains. The other kids told me stories about her, how she'd yell at them for being too loud or for accidentally stepping on her lawn. They called her Karen, and the name stuck. At first, I tried to be understanding, maybe she just liked her peace and quiet. But as time went on, Karen's behavior got worse and worse. She'd come out and threaten to call the police if we didn't stop playing. She complained to our parents about the most ridiculous things, like how the sound of our bike wheels on the pavement was disturbing her afternoon nap. Despite Karen's constant complaints, I found myself enjoying the time with my new friends more and more. We played all sorts of games, but our favorite was having water gun fights on hot summer days. It was during one of these water gun fights that everything came to a head. It was a scorching hot day in July, school had been out for a couple of weeks, and we were all itching for some fun. T suggested we have a water gun battle, and everyone agreed enthusiastically. We all ran home to grab our water guns and met back on a street. The battle was epic. We were darting between parked cars, hiding behind trees, and ambushing each other from behind bushes. The sound of laughter and shrieks filled the air as we soaked each other with icy water. It was the most fun I'd had in ages. That's when it happened. Karen's front door flew open with a bang. We all froze, expecting her usual tirade. But what we saw made our jaws drop. Karen was standing there with the biggest water gun I'd ever seen. Before any of us could react, she started blasting us. "Hey, what are you doing?" I yell at her. "You kids are making too much noise. I need some peace and quiet. We're just having fun. We'll try to be quieter, okay?" "No, it's not okay. I don't want you playing near my house." She kept shooting us with her giant water gun, soaking us even more than we already were. We had no choice but to retreat, running down the street to my house. T asks me, "What was that about?" I have no idea. She has never acted like this before. We were all in shock. Sure, Karen had yelled at us before, but she had never physically attacked us like this. We were upset and confused. When our parents got home from work, we told them what had happened. They were just as shocked as we were. A group of parents, including mine, went to talk to Karen, and they came back looking frustrated and angry. Mom says she refused to apologize. She said, and I quote, "I don't have to apologize for anything. I just want those brats to stay away from my house." The parents decided to have a neighborhood meeting to discuss what to do about Karen. I wasn't allowed to attend, but I could hear raised voices from the living room where they were gathered. When it was over, my parents came to talk to me. Dad says, "We've come up with a plan to teach Karen a lesson, but we need your help." They explained the plan. It was bold, it was daring, and it was exactly what Karen deserved. A few days later, the plan was set in motion. Every kid and adult in the neighborhood gathered on a street in front of Karen's house. We all had water guns, water balloons, and even a few garden hoses. When Karen came out to see what was going on, her eyes went wide with shock. "What is the meaning of this?" "We're having a neighborhood water fight, Karen." "Care to join?" Mom tells her. "Stop this at once." But no one listened. Instead, at a signal from my dad, we all started spraying. Karen tried to run back inside, but she was surrounded. Water came at her from every direction. She was soaked within seconds. "This is assault. I'll call the police." "Go ahead, Karen. I'm sure they'd love to hear how you attacked a group of children with a water gun unprovoked." Karen's face turned red with anger, but she seemed to realize she was beaten. She retreated into her house, slamming the door behind her. We all cheered and continued our water fight, this time without any interruptions. After that day, things changed on our street. Karen stopped coming out to yell at us. In fact, we barely saw her at all. Rumors started to circulate that she was planning to move. At first, I didn't believe it. Karen had lived on our street for as long as anyone could remember. But then, a for sale sign appeared in front of her house. The day the moving truck came, we all watched from our yards. Karen came out looking smaller and older than I remembered. For a moment, our eyes met, and I thought I saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes. But then she turned away, got into her car, and drove off without a word to anyone. We never heard from Karen again. I like to think she found a new place to live where she could have all the peace and quiet she wanted. In our street, well, it became the best place to grow up. We had water fights whenever we wanted, played games in the street. We enjoyed our childhood without fear of an angry neighbor ruining our fun. I've been a mechanic for almost 15 years now, and I've seen my fair share of workplace drama. But nothing could have prepared me for the entitled nightmare I recently had to deal with. Let me tell you about how I ended up teaching my new boss a lesson he won't soon forget. I am the lead technician at our auto shop, and I've always taken pride in my work. Sure, I might not be the most organized person in the world. I've got attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which I've been managing without medication for the past few years. But I get the job done, and I do it well. My toolbox might look like a mess to some people, but I've got a system that works for me. Every tool has its place, even if that place isn't always obvious to others. Things were going pretty smoothly until our company got sold to a new corporation. With the new owners came a new boss, and that's where our problems began. This guy was only 22 years old and happened to be the son of one of my former bosses. Yeah, you guessed it. Nepotism at its finest. His dad had been a real piece of work, always putting me down and making me doubt my skills. I tried not to hold it against the son, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have some reservations about working under another member of that family. From the moment he started, it was clear that this new boss and I weren't going to see eye to eye. We had a few minor disagreements in his first 3 months, but I kept my head down and focused on my work. As long as my paycheck kept coming, I figured I could deal with just about anything. That all changed one fateful morning. I had just clocked in and was about to unlock my toolbox when the new boss approached me with a smug look on his face. "New boss? You won't be working on any cars today until your box is organized." I tell him, "My box is organized in a way that works for me. Not good enough for me or the company. I need to be able to find tools when I need them, and it needs to look neat and orderly for when corporate comes through." Was he seriously telling me how to organize my own tools? So you're telling me that you need to be able to find my tools that I have purchased when you need to use them? I don't remember signing that agreement. He just nodded and muttered something about insubordination, then informed me that he'd be passing off all the work to the other technician until my toolbox was organized to his satisfaction. At first I thought he was bluffing, but then 3 cars came in and all 3 tickets were handed to the other tech. This guy was actually messing with my paycheck over the organization of my personal tools. I was fuming, but I tried to keep my cool. While he was in the back doing tire inventory, I decided to teach him a lesson. I opened the top drawer of my toolbox, spread my arms wide, and swept every single thing into the drawer. I did the same for the second and third drawers until the top was completely clear. Then I moved on to my smaller carts, repeating the process until everything could be closed and locked up tight. With a satisfied smirk, I clocked out for lunch and headed to my car. As I sat there munching on my sandwich and browsing job listings on my phone, I watched through the shop window as 3 more cars pulled in. The other tech was already swamped with the first 3. And now my entitled boss was frantically trying to open my drawers to use my tools. When I clocked back in after lunch, the new boss pulled me aside looking a bit sheepish. "Can we talk for a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" "Look, I may have overstepped earlier. I called the district manager and, well, my dad too, for some advice. They both told me I needed to make things right with you." I raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. "They made it clear that we can't afford to lose you. Just wanted to make a good impression on corporate when they come through in a few weeks. I shouldn't have singled you out like that." "I appreciate you saying that, but you need to understand something. I'm willing to work with you, but if you ever speak down to me like that again, there won't be a do-over. I'll walk out that door and not look back." "I understand, and I want to make it up to you. I'm going to pay you for the 3 vehicles I worked on while you were out." "That's a start, but we need to establish some ground rules here." "Of course. What did you have in mind?" "First off, my tools are my property. If you need to borrow something, you ask first. No more helping yourself to my equipment." "That's fair. I'll bring my own toolbox from home and start building up my own collection." "Good. And when it comes to organization, I'm open to suggestions, but you need to respect that I have a system that works for me. I'm averaging 10 to 15 cars a day, so I don't always have time to neatly organize everything at the end of each shift." "I get it. Maybe we can work on finding a middle ground that keeps things functional for you, but also presentable for corporate visits." "We can talk about that, but no more ultimatums or threats to my work. Got it?" "Absolutely. I'm sorry for how I handled things earlier." As we wrapped up our conversation, I could see the relief on his face. He might be young and inexperienced, but at least he was willing to admit he was wrong. I decided to give him another chance, partly because the paychecks were worth it and the commute was convenient. Plus, I had a wife and a mortgage to think about. Over the next few weeks, things settled into a new rhythm. The new boss brought in his own tools and started learning the ropes of actually working on cars instead of just managing from afar. He'd occasionally ask to borrow one of my specialized tools, but he always asked politely and returned them promptly. As for my toolbox, I made a small effort to keep the top surface a bit tidier, but I stood my ground on keeping my organizational system intact. The new boss seemed to accept this, especially after he saw firsthand how quickly I could locate any tool I needed in the heat of a busy day. When corporate finally did come through for their visit, they were impressed by the efficiency of our shop and the quality of our work. The new boss even gave me a nod of appreciation as they praised our team's performance. After all, in this line of work, you never know when you might need to teach someone else a lesson in humility.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.